Facebook has lost 35%. The stock has lost about 35% since July. Huge losses. It all started with that July figure when we saw that user growth was coming down. Does it have any chance of gaining back some of that ground?
Probably not in the U.S. and maybe not even in Europe, but there's a whole wide world to go after, and that's something that Mark Zuckerberg had talked about in the past, is connecting the world, and I think those are the markets that they're going to push harder on. But it's been a tough year. It's been a tough 18 months for Facebook, and you see like how many people they've had to hire. What was it, like 45% growth year over year?
Yeah, that was what it was, pretty
hiring?
much close to those numbers. 33,000 is what they employ, headcount at least. And I covered the Facebook earnings. And I have to say, it's pretty much in line with what we've seen, the story from Alphabet and Amazon. So top line miss, bottom line beat. But I think that's encouraging because it goes to show that even with the higher cost for Facebook, having to hire more people, employ more artificial intelligence, they managed to make more money than expected.
The biggest problem Facebook has is they're a victim of their own success through the years. They were growing 50, 60%. They sandbagged these earnings to be actually down year over year in order to beat. And so you had another deceleration on both. And that's where you're having the markdown in the stock. And bottom line is you also have a bear market for growth stocks right now. That's not helping either. And then you add in the other things the gentleman said. User growth is headed down. Millennials are walking away from Facebook. That is a very important sector of the economy.
Is user growth really heading lower?
Well, yeah, I think
it depends on where you're talking about.
Well, here's the important thing. We know that engagement is actually coming down. They're talking about the number of users that are actually using it. And here in the United States, they gained 1 million, actually in North America, but they still haven't addressed the biggest problem that's overhanging the stock. So we may see it open up negative depending on what they talk about on the call. And that is that their platform can be weaponized for political purposes. We've seen it happen in Myanmar. We've seen it happen here in the United States. Vice just came out earlier today and they said they posed as 100 senators and took out ads on Facebook, and Facebook approved them. So it seems like they're still not taking hold, and there's a big regulatory concern that could be happening to the stock going forward.
By the way, those ads, they didn't actually place them. They just got approval for them. They didn't actually go forward. But I agree. It shows kind of a big sort of hole in their whole sort of control system that they just introduced.
It had the label. It was very clear. It said paid for by such and such. So to me, that doesn't seem that nefarious.
No, well, if it's not actually paid by the real person, if they lied about, Vice basically created fake people that they were going to fake.
Okay, look, what I'm focusing in on is the stock price, and look at the stock movement. We're up 3% after hours. They're not losing users. They still have 2.26 billion people visiting Facebook every month.
They're not losing; it's slowing growth. Yes,
right. It's slowing growth.
Yeah,
but here's the thing that
Facebook.
Here's something that Facebook needs.
Go ahead, Lance.
Facebook needs to build trust, okay? We just came off of yet another security breach with Facebook. It was a pretty damaging one. 30 million users affected. And it's been one thing after another with Facebook, like every couple of months, sometimes every couple of weeks. And, so they've been buffeted by that. Facebook needs 6 to 12 months of pure trust growth.
We have to move on. John, I'm going to give you the first shot coming out of this particular block. Lance is going to be back with us later in the hour. In the meantime, a stellar bounce back by the markets today. The Dow making a big jump up this afternoon and keeping the rally right into the close, closing up more than 431 points. Still, the major averages are on track for the worst month in nearly a decade. President Trump responding to the recent sell-offs, tweeting this earlier, quote, "The stock market is up massively since the election, but is now taking a little pause. People want to see what happens with the midterms. If you want your stocks to go down, I strongly suggest voting Democrat. They like the Venezuela financial model, high taxes, and open borders." John Layfield, isn't that at least part of the reason the market's taking a pause? They're waiting for the elections?
No, I think the market has gotten a little bit ahead of itself, and you have geopolitical concerns. I think you have legitimate concerns, what's going on with Saudi Arabia and sanctions that could be going on. I think you have legitimate concerns with this tariff trade war that could be escalating at the first of the year. You also have legitimate concerns with interest rates rising. I think the market, President Trump deserves a lot of credit for this economy. The lower taxes, the regulatory cutting and reform has had a lot to do with extending this bull market. In 2001, that came after the bull market ended, and then you saw a renewal after that, 2004 and 2005. We saw it this time before the bull market ended. However, the president is posturing for the midterms. He's trying to get his guys elected, which is certainly understandable. Most of the pro-growth policies are already in place. That's not going to change, even if the House turns Democrat, which is probably going to happen. However, you do have certain things that are going to come off the table, like this tariff and trade war will probably be mitigated some. So you have some negative things that could be coming off if the House changes. As far as the market, I don't think it makes much difference.
Well, I think one of the biggest impediments that's been impacting this market is that the dollar is up almost 10% since we hit the low of the years in February. And we've seen company after company talk about how those currency moves are headwinds for them. Every conference call after conference call talked about tariffs, but more importantly, talked about the strength of the dollar, because then they can't sell through into the emerging markets.
But just think, guys, just think of what will happen with the number of investigations. If the Democrats take over the House, they can open up all kinds of cans of worms and investigations into multiple companies. I mean, there could be dozens and dozens of major companies that are brought in to be investigated in ways that could really stunt their growth.
I think history has proved that if you have a Democrat-led House and a Republican-led Senate, it's all about gridlock. And markets have not performed well over a 4-year cycle under that scenario. However, the year after midterms, no matter who wins, whether you look at it on a 70-year basis or a 20-year basis, the market usually rallies because you have an overhang that's been removed.
Although sometimes, Gary, the stats show that if there's gridlock, markets say, okay, good, they can't do any more harm.
Sometimes, and look, those won't be cans of worms. They'll be tubs of worms as far as investigations go. They've already telegraphed that. And this lefty leadership is all for higher taxes, more rules, more regulations, fees, fines, mandates. The good news is there's something called the veto pen that'll come out if they try to pull any of that shtick. Look, as far as markets itself, they topped out in half the market topped out in January and never came back. The other half of the market topped out in the beginning of October, and it is a big issue as we move forward at the end of the year. I think the best thing the market's got going for it is it's way oversold and there's some seasonality coming up, but I do worry about what the market's flushing out here. Guidance has been heading down with a lot of companies. You got the tariff thing, and I think economies around the globe are in rough shape here. I'm not so sure it's the Democrats at this juncture.
Imagine what would happen if the Republicans held on to the House. I mean, I'm thinking that this Dow would pop, no?
Yeah, I think it would, only because it would be a surprise, but I think the pop would be sold into. I really do believe the market's speaking loud and clear right now. The big institutions are selling, and I don't think it just lets up after 1 month. I hope I'm wrong.